Your exit doors are here, and here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know this is the long haul into the end of the talk. So, I am Tracy Maleeff. I'm also known as InfoSec Sherpa on the Twitters. And, sorry, it is very dark up here. What this talk is about, I'll get into this, but just a brief overview in case some of you are confused. I'm just going to talk about some ways to better interact with end users. And by end users, I don't mean just the, maybe admin assistants or the bank vice presidents. I also mean other departments, even other tech departments that you may work with. Anybody who you are relying upon executing security, you need to treat them as your customers. So that is what this talk is about based on my experience as a librarian. Because I know I never tweet about it, but yeah, I used to be a librarian. Okay, so first off, yep, there we go. I also worked at a law firm for 10 years, so I know all about disclaimers. My opinions, strong or otherwise, are mine and my own and not that of a group with which I am affiliated. If you take issue with something that I say, please invite me to the bar and buy me a drink, and I will gladly discuss our differences with you over a cocktail. Hashtag JimFoSec. So I'd like to take a moment to manage your expectations. What this talk is, which I just said a second ago, I'm going to show you some key library science principles and how they pertain to information security dealing with end users. What this talk is not, I'm not trying to sell you anything. This is not a cure-all. Some of these situations may not pertain to your environment, and that's fine. But I do have one expectation of all of you, if I may. If you can at least please just take one thing, no matter how small, out of my talk and implement it back in your work or personal life, then I will consider this talk a success. So those are the expectations. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to do this through storytelling. I'm going to tell you stories about my work life as a librarian, also as a SOC analyst. And as you see, the storyteller is sitting. I may be sitting at some points. I have a chair up here. I have a wonky knee, and if my knee gets wonky, I'm sitting down. It is not that I disrespect my audience. It's that I don't want to be in pain and I want to finish the talk. So if you see me disappear out of sight, it's because I'm sitting down. So thank you. So now you're like, okay, lady, why should we listen to you? So here's my street cred. So that's me and the University of Pittsburgh mascot before a basketball game. I have a master's degree, any Pitt alum? Woo, woo. I'll beat myself up later. I went to the University of Pittsburgh and I have a master's degree in library information science. I also have undergraduate degrees from Temple and Penn State. But I spent 15 years working as a librarian, mostly in academic, corporate, and law firm environments. Corporate, yes, as in QVC, like that QVC. I was a librarian at QVC. And I also worked in different colleges, but mostly in law firms. So no offense to any lawyers in the room, but I know what it's like to work with difficult patrons. So I've been in the trenches, y'all. I've seen some things. I can talk from experience. But I also spent 2 years as a SOC analyst. I'm currently changing jobs, which I cannot divulge at this time, but all will be revealed soon enough. I spent 2 years as a SOC analyst for a large multinational corporation, so I have experience there. And I also have a GSEC. I just want to put that in there. So I do know a thing or two about a thing or two. So that is part one of my street cred. Part two. So with the last law firm I was at for about 8 years, every year the law firm had a customer satisfaction survey that they sent out to the entire law firm. And every year that I was there, the library, which was the department where I worked, ranked #1 in customer satisfaction. Now, before you think I'm full of myself, I am not trying to say that was because of me. I mention this because, again, further to my street cred, I know what it's like to be on a high-performing team in a difficult environment, in a high-pressure, demanding environment. So I know what success looks like. So this is why I want to share this with you, because I've been through this. So hopefully you understand why I feel that I'm qualified to speak about this and why the DerbyCon CFP committee felt that I was qualified to speak about this. So before we go any further, I also want to clarify something. Empathy is not sympathy. Sometimes people use them interchangeably. They're different. And that hot link there from Merriam-Webster, hot link, what am I, like 85? I don't know where that came from. Sorry. Benjamin Buttoning myself up here. Okay, anyway, The link up there goes to a really good page on Merriam-Webster in great detail explaining the difference. I don't want you to feel sorry for your end users. I want you to understand what it's like to be in their shoes. Okay? I want you to understand what it's like to be scared of security, to be scared of technology, to be confused, and things like that. Because that's really important. Like I said, I don't want you to feel sorry for them. I want you to know what they might be feeling, because that's going to help you better assist them. And why do I care about this? So if you have a hat, I suggest you hold on to it. If you are wearing a pearl necklace, I suggest that you clutch it and be prepared to gasp, because I'm going to drop a big one on you here. Ready? Information security is a service industry job. Boom. Thank you. Can I get an amen? Yes, preach it, preach it. Hashtag truth bomb. The reason why this talk came about is when I made my career change from library science into information security, I was dumbfounded that the way the contempt and the hatred and the attitude towards end users that a lot of InfoSec people had. And, you have to understand, before I was a librarian, I was a travel agent. Before that, I also did a lot of customer service-facing jobs. So my entire professional career has been customer-facing. I am very well aware that those customers are the reasons why I had a job. So when I come into security, I'm like, you know that we have jobs because we're servicing their security needs, right? So this is kind of how this talk came about. So information security is a service industry job, because customer service it's an attitude, or as we say in Philadelphia, attitude. It is an attitude. It's not a separate department. It's not someone else's job. It's all of our jobs, no matter what department you're in. It is an attitude. And with apologies to Ice Cube, check yourself before you wreck it for everybody else. Get yourself in line. So I'm going to give you a little exercise here to try and help get you into that empathetic mindset here. Remember a time when you were a noob? Did you ever learn how to play an instrument? I did. I had a mean music teacher who used to yell at me for not knowing my scales and every good boy deserves fudge and all that stuff. I still grew up to be a respected member of society, Mr. Bratton, so there. So that was scary, right? I didn't understand how to read music, and I was trying to do that. What about Dungeons and Dragons? Did you ever have, all right. Did you ever have a mean dungeon master who got mad at you because you didn't know how to cast a spell on an elf? Or don't at me, whatever, I don't know what I'm saying. But anyway, you get it. That just sounded right in my head, so I'm just going to go with it. But in order to understand empathy, think about back to when you were new at something, because this is what your end users feel like. They don't deal with, they don't necessarily deal with high tech every day, or they don't deal with security every day. So it's kind of intimidating and scary, and you need to kind of have an empathetic ear and mind and eye to better service them for customer service. So let's get to the meat and potatoes, using my Philly accent. So this is the reference interview. So I told you I went to University of Pittsburgh for a Master's Library Information Science degree. I also call that library school. So in library school, this was drummed into us. This is a well-known principle in library science called the reference interview. And I'm not going to read the slides because you are all capable of reading, I believe, unless somebody yells out they want me to read it to them. These are the 7 steps. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these steps. I'm going to explain through storytelling and examples of how I've been able to take these steps and apply it to life in InfoSec, specifically as a SOC analyst. Now, I admit this print here is really tiny, so this I'm going to read out. We have a little play going on here. The person on the left says, "I clicked on a phishing link!" exclamation point. And the InfoSec professional on the right says, "I can help!" with an exclamation point. So let's dig in. Approachability. How easily is it for your end users to contact you? Does your department have maybe security@company.com, or is it all individuals? Does someone know how to get in touch with you? And, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't want anybody contacting me directly." Get over it. It's your job. Okay. You need to do that. But make it easy for the end users. Do they know who to contact? Do you like it if you call some company and you get bounced around? Like, "Oh, I need to transfer you. I need to transfer you. I need to transfer you." You don't like it. Why should your end users like it? What about the outgoing messages? What do you say? What kind of impression do you give? And I'm going to give you an example. So we dealt with the phishing emails. And if people submitted an email and it was deemed to be a phish, they would get this message just saying, yep, that was malicious. And that was it. And I spoke up. I was like, can we give them some steps to take or some things to do? So I managed to work with some other people in the security department, and then we crafted this outgoing message of, yes, thank you for reporting that email. It was malicious. If you clicked on it, if you opened something, here are some steps we need you to take. Change your password, blah, 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 blah. If you have any questions or concerns, contact us at this. And you know what change I saw? I would see end users just emailing us in response going, yep, just wanted to let you know I changed my password. That went up exponentially, and I was thrilled. So that means what? They read the email, and they did it, and then they took the time to let us know. So whenever I saw those responses come back, I'd be like, great job. Thank you so much for letting us know. And I really feel like that made us more approachable, because then they could just let us know that they did things, and we gave them information. So what do your outgoing messages say to people? And what's your tone? If you have ever worked any sort of phone job, they always tell you to smile when you're talking because it helps the tone. And I can hear some eyes rolling in the back. I can hear you. But it does help. It's kind of hard to be nasty if you're smiling and you're pleasant. But just be mindful. What is your tone? And I know we all have bad days, but do your best to try and rein it in. And remember, you want to be approachable. Sprechen Sie Deutsch? Parle français? Habla español? You may not speak another language, but to your users, I worked for a multinational company. We would get emails in another language. And some of my coworkers would get angry about that. And I said, it's our job as customer service to figure out what they're saying and to reply. So what I used to do was I would reply in their language using an online translator, with my first sentence being, I am using an online translator. Why? Because they're not perfect, right? So I don't want to offend someone or confuse someone with a choppy translation. So your first response should be, I am using an online translator, and then your message. And then below that, I put what I was saying in English. Why? Because some people who are multilingual may have better skills reading English than they do writing it. Okay, so to make sure that the message gets through, put it in two different ways. And then this also goes for awareness or any other material. Do you have security instructions in other languages for people whose native language isn't English? If you know that maybe your South American offices are having particular problems with phishing, do you have Portuguese and Spanish material for them, or are you expecting them to read English and understand what you're trying to get through? So think about that. Reputation. Remember I said about checking yourself before you wreck it for everybody else? Try to determine what your security department's reputation is within your organization. Now, some of you may be too young to remember this, but about 19 years ago, Jimmy Fallon, Tonight Show fame, or infamy, depending on your opinion, he had this sketch on Saturday Night Live where he was Nick Burns, the computer guy, and I put the lyrics to the jingle there. And that was the whole sketch, is that people would have a computer problem and he'd come in and be like, move, and be really arrogant and mean about it. Is that what your users think of security? Do they think you're Nick Burns? So first of all, take an assessment, and you can maybe ask around, or just how people interact with you. If you call someone and say, hi, this is Tracy from security, do people recoil? Do they get scared? So try to figure out what your reputation is of the security department. And I feel seen is usually a negative thing. I want you to feel seen in a positive way. So what I used to do when I was in the law firm library is I would get involved in activities. Now for you, that might be even just like a softball team or something like that. I was involved in the Diversity Inclusion Committee because I wanted to be able to go to those meetings and say, hi, I'm Tracy from the library. I wanted to be a physical representation of the department I'm in. And why is this important? Because when I first started as a SOC analyst, I replied to a user's email, and her response to me was, oh, I didn't know there were humans in security. And I'm like, what? And she said, oh, I just thought it was all computers and automated. I didn't think any people actually worked in our security department. And I turned to my boss and I showed him the email and I'm like, don't you people ever talk to the end users? He's like, yeah, not really. I was like, oh boy. I'm like, wow, you people need me. InfoSec needs me. So, and I know this isn't everyone's cup of tea. I know some of you are like, oh, screw that. I am not becoming seen. One I'm going to say about that is things like this are a skill. They can be learned and they can be honed. And also remember I said I wanted you to take one thing away from this. Maybe this isn't the thing you take away. But for those of you who are more inclined to get involved in stuff, it's amazing if you go out into your company and be the, a physical face that people can talk to. Now, sometimes it turned into me feeling like a priest at a confessional. I would go to events in another building and I would say I was from security and people would start telling me all the links they clicked on or all the security things that they have in place. Like, I have a really good password. I'm like, yay, thanks. Hi, I'm Tracy. Hi. But sometimes it's funny, and you know what? It helps reinforce that you are a real person working on a real problem. And again, approachability makes you feel seen. All right, so let's move on to point number 2, interest. I want you to be interested in solving the problem at hand, aka do your damn job. Now, I know that burnout is a very real thing, and that is a different talk. But if you are not yet jaded or burned out, do your job. Be interested in solving this because ultimately, this is your job security is protecting your organization. And I hate hot potato. Are you familiar with hot potato of, bouncing things around? This, oh, not mine, pass around. Sometimes you just need to suck it up and listen to what the end user is asking. Sure, there are times when you'll say, there's a different department that is really better suited to answer your question. I'm going to email them on your behalf. I will copy you and I will describe the problem. You don't blind transfer someone on a phone. You don't blind forward emails. You take a moment to be courteous to your fellow professionals, explain the situation, and you copy the person on it so that they can be in the loop of what's going on. So don't hot potato, gently hand over that potato with some chives and sour cream to the other person. And just in general, I can't stress this enough, don't belittle or mock or be condescending. I know things can be hard, and try and believe me, my last week of work at my last job, there were times when I was looking up going, Lord, they are testing me. And I'm Jewish, and I'm still like, Jesus, help me. I know it can be trying. It can be trying. But you know what? You just take a deep breath. Empathy is a service, and you work through it. So it doesn't matter how many certs you have, what your grade point average was, how many degrees you have. Your end users are not going to care what an elite hacker you are unless you care about helping them. So keep that in mind. You can be the best hacker in your company, and that's fantastic for you, but your end users don't care unless you're going to take an interest in helping them. So you can also do this by creating a safe space. And then one of them is just giving users full attention. How many times have you ever called a call center and you hear a lot of laughing and joking in the background, and then the person you're talking to, you hear them stifle a laugh, or you hear yourself go on mute and stuff, and I'm like, hey, attention, pay attention to me. So be mindful of that. There are times when I would leave the SOC to take a phone call to talk to an end user because I knew there was too much going on. There was too much background noise. I wanted that person to know that I was paying attention and I was focused on them. I just want to tell you, so quick story time here. Cold Medicine Carl, not his real name. We get an email one day at the SOC, and he's like, I'm working from home. I'm really sick. I'm on a ton of cold medicine. And I clicked on a malicious link, help. So I'm not going to get into the remediation part because that's not what this talk is about. But long story short, I finally get him on the phone to talk to him. I can hear he's sick. I can hear his raspy breathing. I can also hear how stressed he is. I can hear he's so completely stressed. So long story short is it turned out to be, nothing. The link that he clicked on actually was taken down by the blog provider. So it was actually just one of those that page isn't here. So dodged a bullet. But I did something a little sneaky though. I was like, let's engage your antivirus. And I'm like, this is going to take an hour to run. So I want you to go lay down and rest and let this run its course. Now, you and I all know you can still use your laptop while the antivirus is running, but I was taking some empathy. This guy, I could finally hear him calm down. I got his stress level away, but he was still sick and he's still on cold medicine. So I made a snap decision of like, I'm going to tell a little white lie to get him away from the computer so he doesn't click on anything else. I'm going to tell him to go take a nap for an hour. And he was like, oh, no, okay, you're right. Yeah, I'll let this run. I'll go step away from the computer and I'll do that. No harm, no foul. And it honestly probably took me longer to tell you that story than it did for me to interact with him. Because a lot of people say to me, well, I don't have time in my day to talk to all these people. If you do it right, it takes quicker to help them than it does for you to tell the story. And what's another way you can show interest? Okay, you are not E.E. Cummings. Use punctuation and use sentence case. Okay, write an actual letter. Thank you to the liberal arts majors who got that reference. So there is a structure that you take to a letter and email. There's the salutation. So I just picked Robert. Dear Robert. We have the body of the message. In 2 sentences, I was able to convey 4 points of information. I will break it down for you. Thank you for contacting the security team about the phishing email you received. We will investigate and get back to you within a business day. You thank the user for contacting you. Why? I was going to do a dramatic hand clap here, but I can't with this microphone. They didn't have to contact you. They could have let it go. They didn't have to contact you. You thank your end users for contacting you. And then you reiterate why they contacted you so the end user knows, okay, they understand why I contacted them, rather than just like, thank you for your email. Well, no. Why did they contact you? And then we will investigate. You tell them what action you're going to take. And then within a business day, you give them some sort of reasonable time frame of when they can expect to hear back from you. 2 short sentences, 4 very important pieces of information that that user can feel seen, feel heard, and feel like their problem is being worked on. And then a close. Best regards, sincerely. Cheers is often one that people use. And then your signature. I know a lot of people have SIG files, but just who are you? Who are you on the team? Are you a manager? Are you an analyst? In this case, I was the security team Sherpa. But who are you? So this is such a short email to write. And it's clear, it's concise, it conveys a lot of information. Another way you can show interest is have what I call an entrepreneurial spirit. And you know, entrepreneur, but this is entrepreneur. This is having that drive and go-get-it attitude that an entrepreneur have, but within your organization. So an example of this was long before I even realized I was going to get into security. I saw that the CEO of the law firm had a brand spanking new Apple Watch when they very first came out. And because he was busy showing everybody around, that's how I noticed. But I was in the elevator with him one day and I said, oh, Charles, I see that you have that new fangled Apple Watch that came out. I just saw that there was some security update about it. I will email you the article when I get back to my office. He sent a note to my boss complimenting me on being proactive and being observant to help solve a problem that wasn't even in my area of interest. So have an entrepreneurial spirit, or just, hi, I'm Tracy from the library. I know you work in the healthcare law department. We just got a bunch of health books. I can send you a list when I get back. Just maybe a quick thing about yourself or about your department is this entrepreneurial spirit, just a little elevator pitch of who you are or what your department does to, again, be seen, to be approachable, to have people invested in security and know that there's humans behind it. And listening. I know it's really easy if you hear something like, yeah, I know where this is going, and you jump in. You need to listen to the whole story because there might be plot twists. There might be things that come up that you weren't anticipating. And another skill that you can try to have is pay attention to what the user doesn't say. And I'll give you an example. The user say, well, I clicked on a link, the page opened up, I closed the browser, and then I called you. And I'm like, okay, let's circle back there. What happened from the time that the page opened before you closed it? Sometimes the answer is, oh, well, I entered my username and password and nothing happened, so then I closed it and then I called you. Like, wow, that's information I could have used a second ago. So an easy way this is a skill you have to learn, but a tip for this is when you're problem solving or, doing incident response or some sort of remediation, you know what the steps are to fix the problem in your head. So use that as a checklist as someone is telling you a story. Does this match? Does this? Oh, wait, we have a gap here. Now don't interrupt them, because remember, there might be a plot twist later. Either write it down or just remember it and then circle back, because that also shows your listening skills. But I cannot tell you how many times I have zoomed back in on something that they didn't say, and that was the issue. Usually enter username and password. They conveniently leave that information out, so sometimes you need to ask directly. And again, to be kind is more important to be right. Many times what people need is not a brilliant mind that speaks, but a special heart that listens. And I know that sounds all really touchy-feely, and I can hear eyes rolling again, but you get the point. You know, you need to be kind and not, tell some user, I told you so, I told you that was a malicious site. That doesn't help anybody. You need to be kind. So let's move to the interviewing step. I already talked about what does the user not say. Another thing you can do is you have to be careful how you ask some of these questions. What did you do? That's kind of hard to say in a nice way, right? So I like to say things, what action did you take? Okay, Bob, you clicked on that link. What action did you take next? And he'll be like, oh, well, then I looked at the site and I saw it was the Office 365 login. Okay, what action did you take next? Or what did this thing do that? What action did you take? What happened next? I have found trying to avoid the phrase, what did you do? Because it sounds less accusatory. And again, these people are usually scared. Sometimes they think they're going to lose their jobs. So you want to make them feel comfortable. Remember, create a safe space. So just find other creative ways to maybe ask things about what transpired. Transpired is another good word to use. Now let's get to the next part. Maybe you're trying to search into things. Is there a time when maybe your security failed the end user? Maybe it wasn't their fault. Maybe something malfunctioned. There was, maybe something didn't work right and it wasn't really their fault. Another time, help them connect the dots of things. And I'll give you an example. I have story time. Accounts receivable Rhonda. So Rhonda contacted security and got me, and she said, I have a brand new task with my job. I have to pay invoices, and I've been doing it for a short time. But this one vendor that I've already paid an invoice for, now the invoice looks different, and it's been sent to me in a different way. So immediately, I'm on it. This sounds great. So it turns out it was one of those DocuSign links, and I used my, my lab desktop, to investigate. And honestly, everything kind of looked on the up and up. I was doing all kinds, again, this talk isn't about remediation, but I was doing all kinds of things. So I called Rhonda back and I was like, listen, I can't determine with any certainty that this is or isn't correct, but let's do this. I said, do you have a phone number for someone at that company? She said, oh yeah, Joanne. I talk to Joanne all the time there. She said, I have her email address. And that's when I helped Rhonda connect the dots. I said, but Rhonda, if this company's email is compromised, you could be emailing the criminal. She never considered that. And I said, so if you know what, and you said, you've talked to Joanne before, right? She says, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, call her, ask her if they've changed the way that they've done their invoicing, and we'll go from there. So she calls me back 15 minutes later. Yes, they have completely changed how they've done their invoicing. I was like, wow, way to go, company, for letting people know. But yes, and she confirmed, yes, that was the invoice we sent. Everything was on the up and up. And I've told this story to some people, and they're just like, well, wasn't that Rhonda's job to look into that? Rhonda's job's not security. Rhonda's job is to pay invoices. And again, I praised her for contacting security because this particular invoice was $1,500. Next time, if it was a fake one, it could have been $25,000 or more. If she had never stopped to think something doesn't look right, then this could have just perpetuated into a whole BEC catastrophe. But she was brave enough to speak up and say, this doesn't look right. I'm not really sure. And then she kept apologizing to me because when everything turned out to be fine, I said, it's my job. You did your job by raising the alert. We worked together to solve it. You did your job. And I said, if you ever find invoices that look fishy to you, FI, I said to you, let us know. So that was Rhonda. And then when you answer them, remember, my pleasure to help. They didn't have to contact you. You don't say you're welcome. You're not doing them a favor. You're doing your job. And you remind people you did a good thing. A lot of times I talk to people who are so nervous and upset And I remind them, you did a good thing by contacting security, because what if they didn't? This would blow out of proportion, out of control. Another story time for you. Mike and the wonky mouse. So I get a phone call. Mike is like, so my mouse isn't working right. And I let him finish. And I just very nicely said, thought maybe it was an error. And I said, okay, Mike, well, you've contacted security. Did you mean to contact the help desk? I'll be happy to transfer you. And he goes, well, I just talked to them, and you see, I clicked on a phishing email last week, and now this week my mouse is all wonky. I was like, well, there we go. Listen, now see, what would have happened if I would have just been like, nope, not my problem, hot potato, back to the help desk. This poor guy would have been in a circle going back and forth, and how soon do you think he would have given up of like, okay, nobody wants to help me? So I was like, oh, okay, now we have a security issue. Let's look into this. So I looked into the email and everything, and again, looked at the logs, talked to him, did all this stuff, couldn't find anything that could contribute to the mouse. So I'm like, I'm doing my best Winnie the Pooh. I'm like, think. Take a deep breath, and I go, do you have a cordless mouse? And he goes, oh, you can see that? And so I'm good, Mike. I'm not that good. So I said, when was the last time you changed the battery in your mouse? And he goes, never. I said, do me a favor. Go get a battery, try it out, see if you can replicate the issue, call me back. 15 minutes later, he calls me back. I am so sorry to bother you with this. And I said, it was no bother. I said, I apologize that the help desk could not resolve this for you. I said, but you did a good thing, because this could have been a security issue. I was thinking his laptop was compromised. Okay. So he asked me again, he was like, how did you figure that out? I'm like, I don't know. I took a deep breath, and the InfoSec gods just, waved a wand, and it just popped into my head. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why, but it doesn't matter. So what I did though was, I was like, hey, while I have you on the phone and you're thinking that I'm all great and stuff, can I show you some red flags of that email you've clicked on that to avoid this in the future? He's like, well, sure, I'll stay on the phone with you. So what I constantly had easily available to me were little mock-ups like this. This is one from Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. Shout out to my Canadian friends. Just something to show people red flags. I would have this on my desktop saved. So I'd be like, oh, let me quickly share my desktop, and I'm going to walk you through some red flags. May I send this to you now so that you can keep it? Oh, yeah. So he was very patient. He's like, oh, you're right. I should be more careful. These are great tips. This one I didn't know. I didn't know about hovering, blah, blah, blah. While you have their attention, have this at the ready. Have something ready. Again, it took me longer to tell this story than it did for me to help him. Because also, while he was off searching for a battery, I was working on another problem. So let's get to the follow-up now, our last one. Short on time, some things like I already told you. Have some pre-canned language or some things you can send out to people. Just constantly come up with ways to improve your user interaction. Figure out what works, what doesn't work. Think of initiatives. Is it Cybersecurity Awareness Month? Maybe talk to your security awareness team if you have one, or just bring something up. Think of ways that you can constantly innovate, because it makes things more interesting for you, and it gets your users engaged. I also like to perform random acts of security kindness, and what I called the cyber cupcake. Because keep in mind, outside of our community, people think the word cyber is cool, and they're impressed by it. So I called this the cyber cupcake. It was not this particular cupcake, but I would keep like a JPEG of a cupcake on my desktop. And whenever I saw an end user report a phish that was particularly sophisticated, because sometimes, just as a side note, sometimes you see these phish and you're like, you have to be like, wow, like that was actually a really skillful phish. And other times you look at some of these emails and I'm like, criminals, take some pride in your work. Could you try a little harder, here? But if you see one that's particularly good and that the user, flagged it, I would send them a cyber cupcake. I'd be like, good job, Eagle Eye. Reward good behavior. And because I worked in this multinational company, I couldn't give them a literal cupcake, a physical cupcake. So I sent them a JPEG. People loved it. You would have thought I've given them a giant check, like a big, oversized check. People loved it. I got replies back. You made my day. You made my week. I was unsure about that email. I was scared to submit it in case I was wrong. Nothing ever bad happened from me sending someone a cyber cupcake. Okay, it was all good, and it was super quick because it was on my desktop. It took me 2 seconds out of my life, and people loved it. So reward good behavior. Kindness as a currency and a return on investment. 2 different ways. One story I'll tell you with snacks. Every year around Christmas time, when I was in the law firm library, the librarians and I would all bake cookies and cakes. And if you've ever followed me on Twitter, you know this is my wheelhouse. We would bake a lot of things. And then we would come in and we would package them up and we would make these big cookie trays. And then we would march through the law firm and we would give them to the help desk, give them to accounting, give them to facilities, give them to the mailroom. All the other departments in our law firm that we interacted with, we gave them, a gift as a thank you. Kindness as a currency, months later, there would be some problem that we would need a lot of help solving, and somebody would go above and beyond because we constantly showed kindness. And I don't mean kindness as a currency like a bribe, but I mean, you get a return on investment. Also, if we ever had lunches, a lot of vendors would like to bring in food to the library. We would call other departments. We would call the mailroom guys. Be like, we got sandwiches, leftover sandwiches, come get it. Those acts of kindness that we didn't have to do would come back in ways that we wouldn't even expect because somebody would go way above and beyond to help us for something. So it's a currency. So again, think about your end users. If you show kindness towards them, they're going to be more apt to want to get involved and be a part of security because they're going to want to listen to you because you were nice to them. And then there's the lunch and learns. These could also just be brown bag things if you don't have any budget, but it helps to even just provide soda and cookies if people bring their own. And you can do presentations, but you can also do this with other departments within your organization. Talk to another tech department. What are they doing? What are you doing? How do your paths intersect? Because you also want the kindness of your fellow tech people, right? Because security touches everything, whether the other departments believe it or not. You do things to bring them together. And this kindness is, you're going to have a return on investment of this kindness. So I saw this article, and if you replace the word vaccinations with security, I feel like this rings true. When it comes to security, I think we have this optimistic belief that just by telling people facts, you can change their behavior. Does that sound true? Does that sound true? This isn't really audience participation. It was a rhetorical question. So you've heard in show and tell. So instead, I want you to tell, then show. It's one thing to say to someone, you need to use a password manager, and then walk away and think, I am an awesome InfoSec professional. I have just dispensed some pixie dust onto the world, and it will happen. You need to go a little bit further. And sometimes you may not have time for that. And I get it. But here's a little tip of something you can do. PC Magazine has a great article where they compare password managers side by side, maybe 10 or 12 of them. You can just say to someone, especially if you're just out in public and trying to be helpful InfoSec Nancy, spreading pixie dust. Hey, you know what? If you Google PC Mag password managers 2019, you're going to get this article where they list them all side by side. Take a moment to read, see which one will work for you. Isn't that better than just saying you need to use a password manager? Or GTFO, you need to kind of show some people the way. If you have more time, if especially internal, maybe have one of those lunch and learns of this is how you set up a password manager. That is going to go a long way than just saying you need to set up a password manager. And then remember I told you how the woman was surprised that there was a human in security? I know we all love automation. Automation is amazing. But have you automated things so much that people don't think there's humans behind it? So double check. Again, that goes back to, do people know how to contact you? Because is everything so automated they don't even know how to get a hold of a human? All right, wrap it up. Let's wrap this up. Okay, so originally when I started this out, remember it was called the reference interview. I have rebranded this for you, for the information security community. You're welcome. I'll now give you the 7-point plan for the empathetic InfoSec practitioner. It's the same 7 bullet points, but rebranded for your enjoyment to make sure that it pertains to your world. So let's check in on our little play here. So the person on the left, our end user, says, "I understand phishing now!" exclamation point. And the infamous InfoSec professional on the right says, "My pleasure to help." Now, let's go back for a second. Remember I told you, these are some of my parting thoughts. I told you that people are going to work your nerves, right? They're going to work your nerves. I get it. I get it. Sometimes this is difficult to try and be empathetic and approachable. I want you to have a mantra. I always got upset in the SOC when my coworkers would effing users this and expletive that. I would take a deep breath and channel my inner Southern woman. And now that we are here in the South, this is appropriate. And if they did something that we would call stupid, I would say, bless their heart for trying. Now, don't get me wrong. I am very well aware that bless their heart isn't exactly a nice thing to say. However, it is a not nice thing to say said in a nice way. Remember I said about what did you do kind of sounds accusatory and versus what action did you take next? This is the what action did you take next version of saying something else negative about a user. So I would just take a deep breath, bless their hearts for trying, and then just dig into it. So since we are here in the South, I want you all to dig deep, channel your inner Southern woman. On the count of 3, I want you to say bless their hearts. 1, 2, 3. Excellent. Thank you. You're halfway there. So now you might be like, well, why should I care about a culture of security? Let me tell you about the sugar bowl principle. So you drop a sugar bowl, say on your kitchen floor, the ceramic pieces go everywhere, the sugar goes everywhere, and you have 2 choices. You can either clean it up right away, get everything all spick and span like nothing ever happened, or you can leave it, and it can sit, and it can fester, and maybe people are cutting themselves on the ceramics, or the sugar's starting to get up underneath the tile, and you're getting ants, and it's so spread out, it's a bigger mess. How does this correlate to security? I would rather have an end user reach out to me at 11:59 before I'm about to go to lunch, and I have to eat lunch at my desk to fix a problem, versus them saying nothing and an alert going off at 4:59 on a holiday weekend, and I have to stay and fix something because nobody said anything. But if they had said something sooner because we were approachable, we could have remediated it. I can't think of an easier way to explain why having your users not fear you is better. I'm okay eating lunch at my desk. I usually did it anyway. But it's a holiday weekend. I want to go. I don't want to sit there on a Friday night working on this. One Halloween, I sat in my driveway with my laptop working on an issue and handed out candy while I was remediating on the other hand. That wasn't so fun. I'd rather work through lunch. So sugar bowl principle, you want people to feel comfortable, you want to be approachable, to come to you, to let you know when things happen, rather than be surprised when nothing, when nobody says anything, and then be surprised when something goes chaotic on your network. Another reason why you should care about a culture of security is security departments are a cost center. And if you're not familiar with that term, bless your heart, it's the opposite of a profit center. Profit center makes a company money and usually is kind of left alone. But a security is usually a cost center, meaning you cost money. So one way that you want to kind of endear yourself to a company is to be better at these things of customer service so that you can prove your worth as a cost center. Now, some of you may be looking at me and going, lady, didn't you just tweet in June that you got laid off and you've been doing all this? Yes, I did get laid off in June. However, how was I able to get another really cool job that I can't talk about yet so quickly? Because I was able to talk about all the innovations I did, all the initiatives I spearheaded, all the things I was able to do using the 7-step principle. All my interviews, I talked about it. I was able to land on my feet because of something out of my control because of all these skills. So I'm not a hypocrite. And again, why should you care about a culture of security? Kindness is a currency. And again, I mean this in a positive way. Things will come back to you, returns on investment. It is in your best interest as an individual and as a department to exercise kindness and empathy towards our end users, because it's going to go a long way to having a culture of security where people are excited to report things. I had some users that were so eager to report things all the time. Sometimes I'd be like, whoa, like slow down. I don't care this much about it. Slow down. Nothing's wrong. Nothing bad is going to happen from being kind. And some people might be like, well, you know, kindness is a weak thing. It's being weak. Au contraire. Tenderness and kindness are not signs of weakness and despair, but manifestations of strength and resolution. So if you get anything out of this talk today, I want you to please go forth, be kind, be empathetic, and create a culture of security within your organization. Thank you. And my shameless plug for my newsletters and my blog and things like that. I think technically we have 5 minutes, so if anyone has any stories or questions, I'm happy to entertain those. 9 minutes? Oh, well then either you all can go or we can sit and hang out, but I see some hands in the back. Do you want to come up and talk, or? I'm not sure if there's specific, sorry, the question was asking if, thank you. See, this is why the front row got the candy, because they reminded me to repeat the question. So the question was, are there any good books that reference the seven steps? What I can do is, you see my Medium blog there, I can look into it and post something, and if you follow me on Twitter, I'll tweet it out. Off the top of my head, all I can think of are like library science textbooks, but let me see if there's something more like end user friendly for you. But thank you for your question. Anybody else? Anybody know the score of the Eagles game? You think I'm joking. But cool. Okay, well, I'll be up here for a few minutes. But yeah, I mean, I said everything that I needed to say, and I appreciate you being here. I know the last day is a hard one to